The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, has a new request for information. They're asking the private sector for feedback to improve network endpoint detection and response. Bob Bigman is former Chief Information Security Officer at the CIA. He's the founder of To Be Secure. Bob, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Give us a brief explanation first of what network endpoint detection and response is. What's the big deal?
Yeah, well, it is a big deal. And these tools referred to collectively as EDR and now XDR basically is the next generation of endpoint malware detection. And the idea here, and it actually does work, is instead of doing point-by-point identification of malware based on signatures, the EDR tools are more sophisticated in that they use their collective intelligence as they look through across the entire domain, the entire network of all the endpoints to compare and contrast, what are you seeing? And if they see something, they look to see if it's on other endpoints or other behaviors that look for or basically portend possible infections. They look for those behaviors as well. They also go out and look to their corporate cloud, to look at other collective information that they're getting from threat intelligence, and give you a broader, deeper picture of what's going on in your network. They also give you the ability to trace the actual infection route from the source of the infection across your network, so you have much more visibility. As I said, if you look at the fines that we've had against mostly the Russians and the Chinese in the last 2 or 3 years, they tend to come from these EDR tools.
So obviously this is an important issue. It's good that CISA is looking into it. What do you think of their approach as to how they're getting this, the information that they need and the support that they need?
Well, not too much. First, I applaud the approach and the response to the EO in going out and working with industry. Well done. The approach I find is a little confusing. They basically talk about this gap-filled strategy. But I've read this RFI 5 times. Even when I worked for the government, I never read an RFI 5 times. And I really can't figure out what it is that they're asking for.
I was actually going to ask you that, Bob, because I read that as well, and I was like, what's that?
Yeah, it's not clear. They refer to it in the opening, but never come back to it and talk about what actually it is. Now, having said that, okay, I'd suggest a different type of approach in which they basically, and they've done this, is actually articulate for the various agencies what the actual requirements are. If you want to sell an XDR, EDR tool to the government, here's what it must do. And they have actually written a document of these requirements. And what I would do is work with industry to make sure they understand the requirements, they have tools, capabilities to do it. And then what I would also do, from a gap perspective, is what I would do is work with these industry partners and say, listen, we not only want you to develop this capability, these XDR, EDR tools, we want you to come up with a validation tool that you'll provide to the government that we will run, or the agencies will run, or both, and we will be able to determine whether or not your setting has been properly set and configured per our requirements. That's the kind of approach I think would keep everyone happy.
So what are your suggestions then for CISA's longer term strategy, right? Not just for this particular issue, because, obviously technology rapidly changes as it evolves, as it should.
Yep. And they actually reference that in the RFI, and that's where I think they could actually work with them in this case to actually evolve the validation tool. As needs change, they can basically come up with new validation and new security requirements. I think the best way they could help everyone is in this idea of establishing very clear and consistent sets of requirements to meet government recommendations and government guidelines, from NIST, for example. And the government needs to sign up to say, if you're going to sell a firewall, an XDR, an encryption tool, it must exhibit the following qualities. And oh, by the way, you must also provide a validation tool, a collection of tools that we can run across our network to make sure they're set the proper way.
So, Bob, what do you think in general of CISA's relationship with industry and how they deal with industry and how they get information from industry?
Well, I think it's improving, but this is a long road. people I talk to in the industry, frankly, are a bit confused as to what exactly CISA wants from them. And I don't think this RFI really helps a whole lot. Again, I think the long-term approach ought to be more from a perspective of being the actual cybersecurity requirement organization of the U.S. government, and working directly with industry partners to make sure that we're developing requirements that actually can be met to help meet the evolving threat, right? And then work with industry as the threats change to actually change product requirements and actually be the, I don't want to say the standards organization, but actually be the organization that validates via these testing tools the correctness of these products.
All right. Well, Bob, thanks so much for coming on the program. Nice to see you.
Sure. Thank you.